Hey everyone, welcome to John Codes. In this video, we're going to be learning about ZSH, or more often called Z Shell. We'll cover how to customize your command line, add command completions, we'll go over Z Shell syntax, and a lot more. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, links will be in the description for everything. So without further ado, let's go. Now, Z Shell is an extremely powerful modern Unix shell that has extended the bourne shell. It was first released in 1990 and continues to receive stable releases. In 2019, Apple replaced Bash, the born again shell, with Z Shell, making it one of the most widely used default shells. Apple did this for licensing reasons, but Z Shell is very capable and very powerful. Now, if you don't know what a shell is, it's essentially a way to interact with your computer by giving it text-based commands. Now, this might not sound very powerful or very useful, but it is the original and most powerful way to interface with a computer. And more importantly, it enables you to talk directly to the operating system. It strips away the layers of abstraction between you and your computer. Different shells offer different built-in features, different interactivity, but in general, they all follow this format. You'll give the shell a command, and that command will be read in by the shell. And the shell itself will start a new process. So this will be our process here. And this process will do some work. It may run a binary command, and that could be something like an application binary or a command that's found in the bin folder. It could work with the operating system to get some work done, or it could even be a shell built-in. And we'll get to what that is a little bit later. But essentially what we have here is the shell receiving a command, parsing it out, starting some process, running that process, managing the process, and then returning interactivity back to the user. Now, this step right here, you might hear it referred to as the CLI, or the command line interface. That's the actual command line where you type in your commands, and the shell gets it and processes it. So while all shells support running commands and basic operations, process management, and interfacing with the computer itself, different shells offer different interactive and quality of life features. Z Shell specifically is designed to be both interactive and powerful. Specifically, Z Shell has robust inline completion features, it natively supports Unicode, and it has a lot of context-specific help. Z Shell is my personal shell of choice. It's helped improve my workflow immensely, and I think it can help you. So now let's take it a step back outside of the shell and talk about a terminal. A terminal is the program that actually renders the shell and wraps around the shell to give you the command line interface. macOS comes with a terminal. We can search in Spotlight, terminal, and this is the default terminal we get right here. Other distributions like Ubuntu come with their own terminal as well. But if you're on macOS, I recommend using iTerm2. It's extremely powerful, very fast, and you can customize it. If you're on another Unix distribution, there are tons of great options for a good terminal. And if you're on Windows, I recommend using a virtual machine or something like Windows Subsystem Linux. Unfortunately, Z Shell is only available on Unix-like distributions. So now I have iTerm up here, and if you're using macOS Catalina, Z Shell should just be the default shell. If not, or if you've upgraded from an older version of macOS, you may see this warning message about the default interactive shell is now ZSH. And the next line we can see, to update your account to use Z Shell, please run the change shell command right there. So the change shell command we can use, -s, and we can say bin Z Shell. And it'll ask for my credentials here, and it'll change the shell for me. It won't immediately change it here in this terminal session, but the next time we load the terminal, getting a new login shell, we will see Z Shell. Here I have a new session, and we can see that that warning message is gone. You can also confirm this by performing the command echo $shell in all capitals there. And we can see that it returns bin Z Shell. Now, $shell is an environment variable that lets this environment, this terminal here, know what shell is being run. You can also install a later version of shell on macOS with brew install Z shell. And this will get us the most recent features and bring us to the latest update of Z shell. For other users on Unix-like distributions, you can also install Z shell from source or other packaging managers. I'll link a good GitHub page with full instructions for Z shell installation across a ton of different distributions. Now, when you first start a new Z shell session, you might see a startup wizard that looks something like this. Now, for now, I recommend just quit and do nothing, because we'll get into more of the configurations and ways that you can customize Z shell to your own liking. So we'll just hit Q here, and we're back to the command line. So now that we have Z shell, installed the latest version, and set Z shell as the default login shell, we can start exploring some basic commands and features of Z shell. Again, if you've had any problems with installation here, I'll link a really good GitHub page that should be able to help you and get you through any issues you're having. Now, just like bash, and really any other shell, any normal binaries and commands found in the path should work. So for example, if I use the list command ls, I list everything inside of my home directory here, and I can use cd or change directory to go into workspace, and then let's use list again, ls, to see what's in here. Bunch of stuff. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, what is the path? This is something that confuses a lot of new users, especially new users to Unix. All the path is again an environment variable that this environment, this terminal session, this shell here knows about and can use to scrape the paths to binaries and make them available on the command line interface. And you can look and see what that path is with just echo $path. And we have user local bin, user bin. These first two are usually where a lot of the operating system binaries live, and so on and so forth. Now, you might be seeing a pattern here with the $sign followed by some name of a variable. Using the $sign syntax, you can get the variable's contents and using it with something like echo really easily. So let's take a look at this first one here. We can change directory cd into user, local, and bin. And the way I'm getting that completion there is I'm just hitting tab. So to see that again, user lo, I hit tab, and it auto-completes local for me. And bin. And so we're in the bin here. So let's see what we got. ls, and it's all kinds of stuff. These are binaries that are in the path, and these binaries can be run inside of the command line interface. Now, just like anything else, we can customize the path. And we'll get into this a little bit later, how you would do this for a persisted environment. But you could do something like export path equals the path now, and it's all delimited with the colon. We could say my path. Hit enter. That path variable has been exported to this terminal session, and we can see what we get. Echo $path. And we can see at the end here, my path has been appended. Now, you would add this line here to your configuration file to get different binaries and things in your path correctly. So we're back here in my home directory. Now let's look at a few other Z shell specific features. Now, I mentioned shell built-ins before, and really all they are commands and features built directly into the shell itself. And these are not binaries or applications. You won't find these commands in the path or under user bin, but rather the shell itself interpolates the command and runs a process inside of the shell. And this enables providing better interfaces and interactivity features for the shell environments itself. Now, in Z shell, there are just tons of built-ins, really great things. You can learn all about them using the man command. So man, which stands for manual, built-in. And we can see all of these built-ins here, big list of them here. Hit Q to get out of there. Now, alias is a common built-in. It's also implemented in a number of other shells. But what alias does for us, it takes a short command and expands it into something else. So let's look at an example. Alias, and we can just say E equals echo. Hit enter. So now anytime I use E as a command, so let's say E hello world, the E will get expanded into echo. You can use this to shorten up commands, makes your life a whole lot easier. So now that you have a good understanding of sort of how Z shell works and a little bit of what it's about, we can talk about customization and some of the most powerful parts of Z Shell, its community. One of the biggest ones is Ohmyzsh, and this is a community framework for customizing, making the command line interface just awesome, themes, additional plugins. It's really, really, really good. If you're using Z Shell, I highly recommend installing Ohmyzsh. So let's give that a go. We can click install Ohmyzsh here, and we see we have a command here. Let's copy this, come back over to our terminal, paste that in, and let it go. Now you'll want to follow the on-screen prompt here to get the installation and get Ohmyzsh going. So I've gone through the on-screen prompt. I can see here now that my interface, my command line interface, is different. And we've gotten all kinds of different things. We've gotten different aliases. So another one I like is LL, which is long list, and that gets loaded in directly from Ohmyzsh. Now, I recommend giving the Ohmyzsh GitHub wiki a look, and we can see that here. This pretty much has all the information you need about how this framework works and how you can get different themes, add plugins, all kinds of stuff. But for this tutorial right now, the default theme will be just fine. Now, we'll want to talk about the configuration file for Z Shell, and that's .zshrc. We can see it here. And this is the default configuration that Ohmyzsh loads in for us. It gives us plenty of great defaults, but you'll need to know where this file is. It should just be in your home directory, right at .zshrc. This is where all of your Z Shell configurations should go, and if you want to add anything, change, customize, this is where it's going to happen. Now, the reason I wanted to bring up Ohmyzsh so quickly in this video is that it gives us a lot of Z Shell specific features and turns them on. Otherwise, we would have to write a configuration file ourselves, and a lot of the defaults in Ohmyzsh are just really great. So let's look a little deeper into some of those things that Z Shell gives us. Another really nice one is directory shorthands. So we can do cd u low b, and this is user local bin. If I hit tab here, it auto-completes that shorthand for me. It's a really nice interactive feature. Another one is the kill process shorthand. So I can do kill Firefox, I hit tab, and it automatically takes the name of that process, Firefox, and fills in the process ID. If I were to hit enter here, it would kill my Firefox on my other monitor. Z Shell also has really powerful reverse search. Now, if you don't know what reverse search is, you can hit Control R, and you see this here, back I search. Now this is the reverse search, and this will look back through my history, starting at now, and reverse through looking for things that I type in here. So let's just type in something like config, and I can see there's a Kubernetes config command that I ran a couple weeks ago, or git status. That was the last git command that I ran. Reverse search is really powerful for finding commands that you ran previously. Now, other shells have reverse search, but I like Z Shell's reverse search a lot because it actually shares the history between sessions. Z Shell also has command specific search. So if I type SSH and then start hitting the up arrow, I will get search back through history with only SSH as the start of that command. Now, these are some pretty fast one-offs, but I hope it gives you an idea of some of the interactive features that Z Shell has. Now, let's talk a little bit more about configuration. Now, here's the configuration file, and right at the top, we have what I was talking about with the path. We can uncomment this line here to export a new path variable with home bin and user local bin, followed by the current path variable. Now, we could append other things to this with the colon and an absolute path, my path, which doesn't exist on my Mac, but if it did, it would scrape this for binaries and make it available on the command line interface. Let's recomment that. And next we see the path to the Ohmyzsh installation, the current theme, and a bunch of other stuff in here commented out. You can comment out the specific lines that you need to get specific Ohmyzsh configurations, but a really big one here is the plugins. Now, Ohmyzsh comes with all kinds of different plugins, things that enable Z Shell to be expanded even further. So some of my favorite commands that we have in here, kubectl, getfast is a really good one, and another really great one in Ohmyzsh is history substring search. So let's save that, and we've added all those. Let's start a new terminal session. So exit out of here. And I actually had a typo in here. It's not get dash fast. It's actually get fast like that. So let's try that one more time. It's nice that Ohmyzsh shell gives us that instant feedback like that. And it's loaded. So let's try the Kubernetes plugin. One of the things that it gives us is Kubernetes aliases. So like K is just the kubectl. History substring search is also really powerful for things like Z shell. And we can hit up and we can see that it makes a match on a specific portion of the previous command, Z shell right in there. Let's try another one. Hello. And there's one of the hello world commands we last ran. Make dir hello world. We can see that it's not just matching from the beginning, but actually the whole substring. This is a really great plugin. But say that you didn't want it. You would just remove it from this plugins array inside of your .zshrc. You would reload your terminal, and that plugin would be disabled. Now, again, I recommend looking at the Ohmyzsh shell GitHub page, plugins, and there's just a whole list of them here. Really, anything you would need, it's probably an Ohmyzsh shell. It's great. Another great place for additional Z shell tools and plugins is the Z shell users group on GitHub. Now, one of my favorites is the Z shell completions, which gives you additional completion definitions for Z shell. They have installation instructions here, and most of these plugins enable use with Ohmyzsh shell. We would just git clone here, so let's give that a try. We will copy this, head over to our terminal, run that command, and it'll clone that inside of the Ohmyzsh shell directory, inside of our custom plugins directory there. That's another really powerful way that Ohmyzsh shell enables its users, is this custom directory. So then the instructions tell us we want to add Z shell completions to the plugins array. So come in here, Z shell completions. And then this is another important part, is the auto load part of this. Now this will reload completions, which are the tab completions you get, the interactive part there, as part of Z shell. So we come back in, Z shell ZSHRC. Right here, we can add the auto load, and that'll reload the completions for us before we get to the actual Ohmyzsh shell part of this. Now, this line here, while we're at it, actually loads up Ohmyzsh shell and all of the plugins that you've defined. This is really the moneymaker command for us. Now, another really fantastic plugin for Z shell is power level 10K. What this is another way to set the theme and the configuration for your prompt. You can get some really powerful prompts using power level 10K, and it also works with Ohmyzsh shell. Like I said, Ohmyzsh shell is a very necessary part of using Z shell day in and day out. Well, that about does it for this video. Again, I don't think I could cover all of Z shell in one video, but I hope this gives you a taste of the interactive features and all of the customizable plugins that you have, and Ohmyzsh shell, which is an incredibly powerful community framework for Z shell users. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment, drop in the Discord. I'll be hanging out there. I will catch you next time.